Hello and welcome back to the blockchain.com podcast. My name is Garrick Hileman. I'm the head of research at blockchain.com and a visiting fellow at the London School of Economics. Today, I'm joined by blockchain.com co-founder Nic Cary. As part of the Crypto Basics mini-series, today we're going to be diving into the environmental impact of cryptocurrency. Crypto has a reputation of being unsustainable. However, by the end of this episode, you'll know how much energy is used in Bitcoin mining, delve into some of the benefits of using electricity in crypto, and have an idea of what the future of Bitcoin mining might look like. Well, Nic, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Garrett, for having me.
So let's start off with some basics around how Bitcoin mining and crypto mining generally actually works.
Yeah, let's get into it. So one of the novel innovations of Bitcoin was basically proposed from the very start to use a type of database known as a blockchain. And the pioneering sort of innovation was really to apply a way for this network or this database to stay in a constant state of agreement. This is known as a consensus mechanism. And this was really important because if Bitcoin was ever going to work, it needed to basically function without a central authority. So you don't have a single entity like a MasterCard or a Venmo or a PayPal being a middleman between individuals performing economic activity. And so essentially, for a decentralized cryptocurrency to function, we needed some type of consensus mechanism. And Bitcoin used one called proof of work. Now, there are two major consensus mechanisms used by the majority of cryptocurrencies today. Proof of work is the older of the two consensus mechanisms, and that's the one that was adopted by Bitcoin and Ethereum and several others. There's a newer consensus mechanism called a proof of stake, and there's even some more exotic things that are being tested in the market too. So let's get into the definition of what proof of work really means. So basically, proof of work and Bitcoin mining are very related concepts. And the reason it's called proof of work is because the network requires a large amount of computer processing power, proof of computing power, basically. So proof of work blockchains are secured and verified by individuals or entities that are virtually mining the digital currency known as Bitcoin, and they're using computing power to solve a relatively complex math puzzle. The winner of that math puzzle basically gets rewarded by the network with a predetermined amount of Bitcoin that is coming into circulation. So why would anyone invent this? What's the point? Well, proof of work has some really powerful advantages, especially if you consider how valuable and how much value is being secured by the Bitcoin network itself. So essentially, all of the energy that goes in to securing the Bitcoin blockchain basically makes it very, very difficult for any individual or adverse actor to tamper with the blockchain itself. So one of the most important features of the Bitcoin network is having an untamperable record-keeping system that no one person can modify. And so essentially the energy is converted into security. The security protects tampering the history of the transactions. So that's sort of a little bit of an exercise in explaining it, but it is also quite complicated. So I'd love to maybe get your maybe 2 to 3 minute rebuttal or maybe refinement of that position so that maybe the audience can have different views.
Yeah, well, you hit on, I think, the key at the end, for me at least, which is security. And the fact that Bitcoin, 13 plus years into existence now, has not been hacked or compromised at the protocol layer. So the cryptocurrency itself, we're not talking about exchanges or businesses where there have been security problems, but the protocol itself has remained secure. The reason for that is the proof of work algorithm that you mentioned, and the energy, the large quantities of energy that are going in to secure it. As you discussed, Bitcoin's incredibly valuable today. It crossed last year the $1 trillion mark in value. It's close to that still today. There's a lot of people who have invested and put a lot into Bitcoin. And so it makes sense that something this valuable would have a very significant security budget to make sure that remains secure. And that energy is key to that. So I think one of the big misconceptions is somehow this energy is going to waste. People may not like Bitcoin, but that's a separate subject. There's no question that this energy is playing a crucial role in why Bitcoin exists today, 13 years on, and has come to be trusted by hundreds of millions of people around the world as a store of value.
Yeah, and I think if you compare and you have an honest assessment of the cost of security historically, and you think about what was necessary in order to protect funds in, I would say, the molecular world, or like maybe gold in a vault, you would need to build a giant fortress. You need to put all kinds of gates, electronic fences up, monitoring systems. You hire staff, you hire people to patrol the grounds, and all of that security is there in place to prevent malicious actors from tampering with the value that's stored within that institution or entity. In the digital currency space, we're using raw energy and electricity to make it difficult for any one actor basically to tamper with the record-keeping system of the Bitcoin network. So let's get down to some brass tacks, though. You often hear some salacious headlines that say that Bitcoin is eating up all of the world's energy and it's consuming so much that it's causing an increase in CO2 outputs and potentially even being specifically responsible for increasing the Earth's warming. How would you go about rebutting that and contextualizing it, Garrick?
Yep. So I think in 2017, we started to see headlines appearing, and that was during another major Bitcoin bull cycle where the price was rising, I think in that year, close to $20,000. We started to see headlines appearing comparing the energy consumption of Bitcoin to small countries. And that again happened last year. As Bitcoin's price rises, we see more media scrutiny, and it's very easy to measure Bitcoin's total energy consumption because of how transparent the network is. It's not so easy to measure how much energy things like Christmas lights are consuming, for example, or other things that are quite popular. But Bitcoin's very transparent, and it's really easy to say, oh, this network is, consuming something close to the size of a Slovakia, or I think even in Ireland was mentioned. And it's true that Bitcoin is consuming energy of that level. But I think the point you were starting to allude to there, Nick, is that you have to go a little deeper into what type of energy is being consumed. And there, the story gets a lot more complicated very quickly. There are wasted or stranded energy resources that cannot otherwise be put to use that are playing an increasingly important role in empowering the Bitcoin network. There's also a rising share of clean energy powered by solar, wind, hydro, perhaps even one day volcanoes. I'm not sure the volcano operation in El Salvador is up and running yet, but a whole variety of cleaner renewable sources of energy are already in use. And there's an expectation that that's going to increase over time as we do two things. One is we transition more of our energy grid to renewables naturally. That's happening anyway with the rise of electric vehicles and the desire to cut down on carbon emissions. But also, I think intriguingly, the proof of work cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin offer a really interesting way to help actually fund the rollout of some of that renewable infrastructure, because wind and solar don't produce energy 24/7, and they also don't necessarily see consistent demand throughout the day. And so the idea that something like Bitcoin, which can eat the electrons, the excess electrons that are being generated at times when there's a drop in demand, the peak periods are usually in the evenings when families are at home for residences, or in the mornings. So maybe during the day, when often solar in particular is quite powerful and energy demand drops, there's a need for those electrons that are being generated to go somewhere. And Bitcoin can do that and create value that can help actually fund an accelerated rollout of renewable infrastructure. So that's another thing that we're keeping an eye on that looks quite promising and can make this kind of part of the solution to global warming and concerns about the carbon impact of traditional fossil fuels.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that you pointed out there that are just worth reiterating. One is the transparent nature of the blockchain itself allows us to actually measure this, which is completely different than the estimates that are very fuzzy math that we would need to conduct to understand the negative externalities of, say, strip mining for gold or building Wall Street or Canary Wharf. these monuments to financial capitalism that arguably are unnecessary, because if you can convert energy into security and security into a utility for the internet that allows anyone in the world to transact with a record-keeping system that enables them to have more financial inclusion and access, I think mark to mark, you would argue that the energy consumption of maybe, say, the equivalent of all the hair dryers in Europe would be a very valuable trade-off to make. And so the other one that's really significant is crypto is playing a leading role in investing in renewable energy production. And this is a natural outcome from an efficient market hypothesis, which is that anyone that wants to mine Bitcoin wants to do it with affordable renewable energy because it drives the cost of acquiring that energy down. And so many cryptocurrency projects and mining operations are actually investing in seeking renewable energy and leading us to a world where we're going to have more of that faster. And so it is a nuanced argument, but I think the two things that are really important are, one, we can measure this thing. And so we can immediately price the externalities of that energy consumption if necessary into it. But secondly, it's the composition of the energy that's more important than the total amount of energy it's actually using. And so it's easy to make, I would say, a headline that might make some eyes pop. You need to look a little bit beyond that, because it's not necessarily consuming as much natural gas and oil producing energy as it is in total a combination of also very renewable energy, and headed more in that direction in the long term. Okay, let's see. Let's talk maybe real quick about some of the alternative consensus mechanisms. So Bitcoin's famous for using proof of work. It does use energy, as we've discussed, but it uses a mixture of energy, and also that energy provides an enormous amount of utility. How about something like proof of stake? We know there are a lot of different cryptocurrency projects experimenting with this alternative consensus mechanism. Is it valuable to maybe spend a little time talking about that? Because many of these projects are labeling themselves as green blockchains or ESG sort of friendly. What's your perspective on that, Garrick?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we do expect this year the #2 largest blockchain, Ethereum, which also is run on proof of work, as you mentioned, like Bitcoin, to transition to proof of stake and see the amount of energy powering that network drop very, very significantly. So that's, I think, if you're concerned about the energy usage by crypto platforms and protocols, that's a big development, a positive development that we should see this year. Now, some may ask, well, why not transition Bitcoin to proof of stake as well, and just kind of wipe out this big energy footprint? And I would push back on that for a few reasons. One is, as we talked about earlier, the security is really the bedrock for why the cryptocurrency industry exists. And there is unfortunately no way to kind of mathematically prove that some of the cryptography and key elements of these systems are secure. You have to kind of battle test them in the real world, and only over time, and we blogged about this. We can link to a blog where we discuss this kind of battle testing Bitcoin. Only over time, when you stretch out over years and have it running and have a large amount of value secured, in Bitcoin's case, hundreds of billions today, can you gain confidence that this is in fact secure? And proof of stake, as you mentioned, is newer. It has not secured as much value as Bitcoin and Ethereum have, the two largest cryptocurrency networks. And proof of work is the one protocol or algorithm that is achieved kind of mass adoption, at least in the crypto space. Proof of stake is growing in importance, and we're getting more confident in it. But there's a little less confidence about its ability to secure the biggest blockchains. So that would be the reason to kind of like continue to be a little more conservative about transitioning other major cryptocurrencies to proof of stake. But it's not completely inconceivable. This is software; it can be changed. It's unlikely, especially in the short run, but it's not completely out of the question that even Bitcoin could potentially change its consensus algorithm down the road. But I would argue against doing that, given the importance of security and how battle tested proof of work is at this point.
Great, thanks. So I think we're coming up on time. We wanted to keep this episode really quite quick and to the point. I think the main things to land are basically proof of work does consume energy. That energy is converted into security. The security creates utility because people can develop confidence that transacting on that network won't have a situation where the ledger and the history of transactions is tampered with. And for the last decade, Bitcoin has proven that the proof of work system is very, very difficult to compromise. And so it has performed very admirably in an adverse environment. Proof of work is a super exciting and very interesting new area of research and development, and is also getting tested in the marketplace now. I think that's kind of the cool thing about crypto is that you can come to it from a variety of perspectives. And if you do care a lot about the environmental issue, you can use crypto and just rely on crypto networks that are using proof of stake systems and continue to advocate for those benefits there. And so the market is providing a menu of different security and consensus mechanisms for a variety of different cryptocurrency projects and protocols. And we're going to see which ones in the long run went out in the hearts and minds of adopters globally.
Thanks so much for coming back on the podcast, and appreciate your insights.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you're enjoying our podcast, please rate us and leave a review, as it really helps boost our visibility to more listeners. Also, if you have a topic you'd like to see us cover, please get in touch at the following email address: podcast@blockchain.com. Once again, that's podcast@blockchain.com.
Trusted by millions since 2011, blockchain.com has crossed over 1 trillion in crypto transactions and facilitates around 1/3 of all Bitcoin network transactions. Securely store, trade, and buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other top cryptocurrencies on the blockchain.com wallet and exchange. Go to blockchain.com to get started today.